We are on.
You know, I feel like the first thing, obviously, that we have to touch on is the fact that you have never listened to a podcast. I don't even know how that's possible.
Well, I originally thought podcasting was awesome. I did. But something I learned about myself pretty quickly was that I don't like to sit and do nothing and listen. What I do for that is I listen to music, or I listen to, like even audiobooks. I can't get into audiobooks. I feel like I'm doing nothing. Because when I'm driving, I want something to wake me up and get me going. I don't want to have just droning reading. I did find out that actually when I was listening to Ready Player One, I did actually enjoy that. I got to the point, but...
Are you listening to that on audiobook?
I did, yeah.
I didn't know you had an audiobook. I didn't think you were into those.
I didn't. I wasn't. Like I said, I bought it and I was just going to try it out. Like Will Wheaton was reading it. I was driving to Seattle and whatnot. So I enjoyed that. But overall, I was just like, it is what it is. But yeah, no, so that's why. Podcasts never really interested me. I'm very visually motivated. That's why I watch YouTube.
Well, you're into more technology than I am either way. So that means you had to pay attention when podcasts took off. I mean, when did they really, when did they start? Like before everybody had one?
I remember talking about podcasting, I want to say 98, 99. Way back in the day.
Well, it's like internet radio show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was like that, but it was recordable, and then, that was around Napster. And the MP3 revolution, when everything got shrunk down to where you could just shoot over a 57K modem, which some people still had, but even if you didn't, you only had like a 256 KB DSL line or something. Like you didn't have the big pipes we have now, so everything was getting shrunk. The MP3s pissed off Metallica.
Well, how were you able? Now there's tons of different apps. Like you could go on and Google and search in your app store for podcasting, and there would be so many ways to download them. How many ways were there to listen to them in the early days?
In the early days, you would just basically go to a website like podcast.com or Apple iTunes or whatever. I think iTunes was around back then. I don't remember.
I don't know when iTunes came
out. But you could go to websites and it would just have lists of files you click. You still every once in a while, FTP servers. That's what you would do.
Okay.
You would get involved in an FTP server and you would just grab it, download it as a file, then listen to it in MP3 over. It would just be the file. You download the whole thing. You wouldn't stream it. You never streamed anything back in the day. You downloaded it because downloading took the immediacy out of it. So you could, I want to grab these 3 podcasts. We'll download them overnight while I'm sleeping and listen to them tomorrow. Same thing with Napster and all these the original torrents and whatnot. You had them auto running in the background because they took so damn long to download a 5-minute song. It wasn't an immediate thing, So that's so podcasting was there. I just didn't really at the time. I wasn't, this may speak to me, but I didn't really care what people had to say that much. I was very into what I wanted to say.
Well, I'm sure the subject matters were interesting in the early days of podcasting.
Yeah, I'm sure they were too. I mean, yeah.
Because now everybody thinks they're a guru or something, but back in the day, I would be curious to see what content.
I would actually like to see a podcast archive, podcast 99 style.
I think that'd be cool.
God, yeah, it'd be like Art Bell and shit like that back in the really early conspiracy days. You know who Art Bell is?
No.
Art Bell was this late night radio host that was a straight up Alex Jones before Alex Jones was Alex Jones.
So he was a big Alex Jones influence. Was that?
I think he was influenced? I honestly think that Alex Jones was influenced, whether he would admit or not, because Art Bell wasn't, didn't have the conservative super conspiracy anti-government bent that Alex Jones does. But he definitely was aliens exist, moon people.
Did he think they were putting stuff in the water to turn the frogs gay?
No, that's what I said. He wasn't a full anti-government person. But this lady I worked with at a title company in Austin, Texas. We did overnight shift, graveyard shifts, where we were scanning home loan documents from the 1.5-inch paper into the computer for the first time because they wanted to run it on their AS400, the big hard drive systems back in the day that the platters were it was like the size of your washing machine in the other room. And that was the hard drive, and it was 400 megabytes. And it was the size of a washing machine. It was just insane. But yeah, so we were scanning these documents because they wanted digitized copies in case something happened to the paper of all these home loans back in, like I said, this was 95.
Well, obviously, I don't want to go down
yeah.
this rabbit hole,
Yeah.
but just the fact that you can flash forward 23 years now, or I mean, earlier than that, simply because they've been around. But we literally can hold 1,000 megs or 1,000 gigs of memory on a little, little 3x3 box. So the fact that what you're describing is the size of a washing machine is insane to think. To look at technology in the leaps.
Oh yeah, no, it's like the original computers, like that there wasn't only the MP3s weren't only the limitation being the size of the file you could download via your bandwidth. It was also how much could you store in your computer. Your computer had a 200 meg hard drive if you were lucky. You know, gigs were still far off. I remember, just like these smaller hard drives back then that, so it was always a limitation of size, whether it was streaming or storing. And I think, and we're scaling up now. It's like we have, we've put bandwidth and storage capacity ahead of the curve for the most part, but it is always a game. That's why your apps on your phone. I mean, I remember when I had a Palm Trio back in the day. God, it's like an old guy in the room. No, like I had a Palm Trio back in the day, and like the apps on there were like, 14 kilobytes. Running games and, like all sorts of graphics and stuff. And now it's like your typical apps are like, 50 megs. And even when apps were first thing, like back in the first iPhone 1s, whatever, apps were like 2 megs because you didn't have huge amounts of storage on your phone. Or
I don't even know the average size of an app. Like my phone is so barren anyway. Like,
well, yeah, if you I downloaded the Fred Meyer app for coupons or whatever. Like I'm in the store, like, ooh, new app, boom, coupons and check out technology, yay! But yeah, it was 49 megs. And I'm just like, man, like I said, I remember these things were just tiny. And the thing is, like, your phone can handle it, no problem. It's like we were talking about the other day. Our phone could take us to the moon now. All the processing power of an Apollo mission is half of what we have on our cell phones. But, yeah, so, I don't know, but things have gone to scale with it. All your simple things are now bigger. You know? So, yeah. But podcast, I just never got into it.
And yeah, that's basically, I feel like what just happened is probably going to happen a lot. We turned your first podcast into that, but it worked. So yeah, no, that's cool. It blows my mind you haven't, because I wasn't really super into podcast until I just started figuring out a bunch of these cool people that I like to hear them talk. Like they were just available.
You tend to, like I said, you do tend to listen every time you get in your car. You're listening to a podcast. You're listening to something because you like to find information and knowledge, and that's just one more revenue source that you can maximize your time with. Me, I'm sitting in front of a screen almost all the time. So for me, even if I was listening to like the Joe Rogan podcast or whatever, I would watch it. I wouldn't just listen to it on my computer or listen to it on my car or whatever. I'd literally just load his YouTube video, because there's something to me about just the visualization of things.
Oh, I think people that were just on the phone, essentially, like you can download this, I think they're starting to switch over to where because that's not only is that a different revenue source for them putting it on YouTube, but a lot of people are like that. A lot of people said, man, I'm so glad you started putting your stuff on YouTube now, because I don't want to listen to it. I'd rather watch it while I do other stuff. So I can totally see the appeal.
Yeah, and also like a podcast on a YouTube, you're sitting there, you're still getting best of both worlds. You don't have to watch the video. It's still technically a podcast, so you could walk away from your computer. It just happens to be YouTube. It happens to be the zeitgeist of where we're at now as far as media to person, interconnection. They're the media source, because even like I said, their audio. I mean, people will put on YouTube playlists to listen to music. And YouTube hates that, or actually, most of your internet providers hate that, because you're blasting bandwidth you don't need to. I mean, a YouTube video has video and audio, so you're wasting bandwidth where you only really need to listen to the audio. But that's
I used to do
the most ubiquitous source of. Yeah,
the IT person would get very mad. They'd be like, "Just don't use YouTube to listen to music because you're slowing everything down."
You are the use case. Never mind.
Yeah, I am that guy. By the way, you are listening to the Discord Accords.
Here with Jonathan and Steven.
Yeah, and so that was a little thing taking you down. Steven's never listened to a podcast. Yeah.
Tech.
But let's talk about some interesting news that we found interesting. What do you got, Steven?
Well, there is a hot spring river in the Amazon. Now, you're thinking, well, it's the Amazon. Of course, there's a lot of weird shit in the Amazon.
Also, I thought it was just one, like, forest and river.
So exactly. So that's the actually interesting point, because it is. There's no volcanoes. There's no geothermal vents, or so they thought. But yeah, there's a 6.4 kilometer river that's about, like, I don't know, 25 meters wide, 6 meters deep, that just starts from a hot spring, runs for 6 miles, then joins up with the Amazon River, and it was like a local legend that the tribes would talk about, or basically the guy who did it is a guy named what's his name, Andre Cuzo, something like that. Sorry if I'm butchering your name, guy, but anyway, so he grew up down there hearing about, like, the conquistadors when they came in, like when they talked to the Incas, like, hey guys, we totally conquered you. So what other tribes have a lot of gold that we can go steal from? And they're like, hey, if you go deep in the Amazon, there's whole cities made of gold out there. Just go get it, guys. And so, of course, they went out in the Amazon, and most of them died. But they came back with stories like man-eating snakes and, tribes that eat people and things like that, because that stuff does exist. But they also came out with, there's a boiling river back there. And so we're like, well, the rest of it we know is true, but that river sounds like a bunch of shit. So
how hot is, like, could you theoretically get in it?
89 degrees Celsius, by the way, so it's like 190 something, 200 degrees. Yeah, it's almost boiling temperature.
Yeah, that's cool.
So this guy was like, he was like, he heard about it, grew up hearing about it, and then he actually went and got his geology degree. And so when he's doing his doctorate for the geology degree, he just says that he starts thinking about this history, and he's like, comes back, he's talking to his parents, like he's like, at dinner or some holiday or whatever. He's like, what about that river? It's like, that's a bunch of horse shit, right? And his mom's like, nah. And then his aunt's like, no, we used to swim in it when we were kids. And he's like, what? And so they're like, well, we'll take you to it. And he's like, let's do it. So they go out there, and there's like a shaman that controls that area. And so he got permission from the shaman or whatever to study this thing. But so he's trekking out there with his aunt, and the shaman's like assistant or apprentice shaman or whatever they're called, or walking him out there, and they start hearing this, and he's like, what's that? And the shaman, the apprentice, is like, dude, that's the river, go take a look. So he ran up there and looked, and yeah, sure enough, there's this big ass water, steam coming up, like any hot springs, there's like no plants at the bottom, it's all bare rock, because plants don't like to grow unless they're at a thermal vent at the bottom of the ocean. They don't like to grow in like super hot water. And animals would fall in and, basically be boiled alive and things like that. But with terrible things, but yeah.
With their, like, superstitions and stuff they have, like, what did they think about this boiling?
The river's called, oh man, I'm terrible with these names. Hang on one sec. It's called the...
Because that would be disconcerting.
Tempishka.
Wow.
Which means river heated by the, what is it? River heated by the sun or something like that. That's the name of what it means. But, it's Andreas Russo is the guy. Anyway, but yeah, they thought, it means boiled by the heat of the sun. That's what the name of the river means. But, so they knew about it, though. These guys knew about it for years, but this is the first time science has ever seen this river in the deep Amazon, which is, again, this is going to be a topic for a later date, but the Amazon deforestation and what we're doing in order to fuck ourselves out of the greatest, ecosystem on Earth.
Yeah.
Just burning it, killing it, whatever. It's like, oh yeah, these really cool things, like there's always that joke, like one of the trees they've just killed was the one with the cure for cancer in it, and we just mowed it down with a fucking tractor. But any which way, so he studied this river down. That's his like doctorate thesis. He wrote a book called The Boiling River, or was it La Bamba? That makes no sense, but yeah. Anyway, so he's writing this book about it, and he's actually kind of as a person from that region and a concerned citizen or whatever, he's worried about he hasn't produced his book or his thesis. He hasn't finished the thesis because he wants the Peruvian government to put safeguards in place where people don't just like tourist the shit out of this river.
Yeah,
it's like, let's burn down the forest.
We'll find a way to destroy it. Yeah. If they're like, hey, let's just start letting people come out here and check it out.
Yeah, we'll sell tickets. You can boat down the river, because
just give them like a fucking year, and they'll have a T-shirt shop set up next to it.
Exactly, they'll shaman making $1 billion a year, raking it in. But yeah, so anyway, I thought it was kind of cool that there's like this, because it was things when he first heard about it. He talked to all these people, like like geologists and geophysicists and oil people and all this, and they're like, no. You cannot have a super hot river not near a volcano. The nearest volcano is like 1,000 miles away or whatever. So what he figures is there's just these like cracks in the earth, these vents of heated whatever down there. So when the water goes down in the earth, it gets heated up, and occasionally it breaks back in the surface, and that's what happened here. It's like it's just a giant hot springs in a place where nobody expected to have a giant hot springs, and because of the denseness and the remoteness of the location, no one really knew about it.
That's why I think it's interesting, because the Amazon isn't exactly something you can just be, hey guys, this thing's out there, let's go check it out, because that's not the way it works, because it's the fucking Amazon.
Yeah, no, he was talking about that. Like, he had to fly from his town to a small town there, like a 2-hour flight. Then it was a 3-hour canoe ride. Then it was a 2-hour truck ride, and then it was like a 3-hour walk. And that's the way the Amazon works.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's interesting that was your news segment, because it's an easy segue, because mine is to do with uncontacted tribes. Now, I know from previous conversations we've had, we somewhat disagree on this. Basically, it's pretty simple. A drone captured some footage of an unknown tribe. We don't know anything about their language. We don't know technically anything about their ethnicity. We can guess. Mm-hmm. I believe they captured 5 or 6 people.
And where was it?
It was in the Amazon.
Okay.
I believe I think they had a bow and arrow on them, like something pretty primitive. But basically, it's just one of those things. And I believe the same forest where they found it, I think last year, they caught some miners who were bragging about killing some tribe members, basically dismembering their body and throwing them in a river. So they arrested them because they were bragging about it at a bar. But I'm pretty sure this is going to turn into a main story at some point in future episodes, just because it's a very big topic. I just thought this was interesting because with uncontacted tribes, I guess the gray area for me is, why do we need to fly a drone over there? Why do we need to contact them? So I guess that's where I'm a bit conflicted, because any new introduction, you can introduce the common cold and wipe out an entire village. Mm-hmm. And that's why I just feel like it's pretty conflicting. But anytime you hear about something like this, it's cool, because there's so little left in the world that's unknown. Like, if you don't think of the ocean or space, when you look at land mass and people, like, there's very little left that's unknown. So I guess that's the cool part of the story.
It's like I read a stat about the fact that you're in the United States, you're never more than 2 miles away from a road.
Yeah, see? So, I mean, when you think about a place where it's like we were just talking about with the Amazon, having to take 4 different flights in and hike 3 hours up something or in something and through dense forest, and if you disappear, no one's ever going to find you, kind of thing. Like, so to think that there's just that little bit left of wonder in the world. But in terms of contacting them, I do very much so have mixed feelings.
Well, what are your feelings?
I think we shouldn't. I think we should leave it alone.
You think they should just be left alone to do their own little thing or whatever?
Yeah, basically, I don't understand our constant need to pursue something like that. I don't understand why we feel like, I don't know what scientist or what group was doing this. That wasn't really mentioned in the article, because it was a pretty simplistic article just about us seeing a tribe. But I mean, like I said, there's a lot more, which is why I think we'll probably turn it into a main story, because there's a couple of other interesting islands.
There's those islands or whatever where, they're the government's trying to keep people away and whatnot. But, and my thoughts is, it's not completely opposite of yours. It's just the simple fact is they're going to get discovered. So why not try to make their first discovery as easy on them as possible by doing it from a scientific viewpoint versus guys with bulldozers finding them in the forest, killing them and dismembering their bodies and throwing them in the ditch. I mean, that's my whole take. Is like, unexplored tribes, they will not remain isolated. This world is too fraught with people who either have ego or accident through or whatever. These guys will be found. These guys will be discovered, and whoever hits them first will be the difference between the flu that wipes them out or the gentle nudging into the rest of the world, and then hopefully at some point maybe independence and knowledge and whatnot. I'm not a person who really thinks we should colonize. I don't think colonialism is what I'm talking about here. It's just, it's going to happen. So through the lens of modern science and sociology and whatnot, I think that would be better if a scientific entity were the ones to make the first contact versus an economic entity, a company or a government.
I can see that, but I will tell you, you read my mind pretty much, because I was instantly thinking of colonialism when you were talking about that. My issue is, why can't countries like that, like with that island you referenced, with the government trying to keep tourists away and fishermen and all that away because of the danger element, why can't the government just make it to where you can't trespass? Because how do we know these guys have lived their lives? They've lived their lives this whole time without knowing of the outside world. They don't know what a fucking cell phone is. They don't know what cable, internet, any of that. So I don't understand why the governments can't do their part to keep it. If those guys want to contact us, they live in the forest. They know how to traverse it. They could send someone out to contact the world. How do we know they want to be bothered?
Well, the problem with that is they are technically citizens of whatever country their jungle or island is in. So however their government wants to interact with them is their legal right, if not their moral right. So the fact that they're trying to keep people away in some way is actually, noble and admirable. But like I said, again, the bottom line is governments and corporations are, they're fleeting. They go with whatever the breeze is for that economic day or whatever. So yeah, I just think that it's going to happen. I'm a subscriber of the inevitability of it all. So
well, I agree with that as well.
So I don't think you can, unless you put a wall around the forest and say, danger, stay out or whatever, or arm it up, or go Truman Show on it, put a big fucking dome over it with the fake sun and whatnot. And the problem with that is, eventually, if they succeed and become larger and eventually do contact the outside world, how many generations down the line before they're resentful that they weren't brought in sooner? Like my grandmother lost 14 to 15 kids to diphtheria or whatever illness that you guys could have prevented 100 years ago, and now you guys just let us die out here in the forest and starve to death or whatnot when you could have helped us. I mean, when does that set in?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that tradition is such a strong mindset with some of those tribes and the way they do things. Like,
how do we know?
I don't know, because that's what we've learned from other tribes.
Yeah.
So we have to assume, like, when you look at historical tribes all throughout history, you have to look at what their shared characteristics were. Most of them were superstitious. Most of them feared something different. Most of them did not like outsiders and responded in a not so kind way, because most outsiders were there to conquer, which is all they know. So, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I think it's a very gray area, but I think it's always interesting just because it reminds you that if in fact it's true and someone isn't just telling us, oh, unknown tribe, it's just very cool and something different in a world where most things are known. But I mean, if you've got some fucking guy in the corner smoking a pack of cigarettes and they've all got machetes, so I'm like, okay, so these guys are unknown. Like, so how did they get the machete? Where did they get the marb reds from? Like, kind of thing. So, no, it's just something different. But yeah, I don't know. Did you have any other cool news?
I think I was going to talk about those sonic attacks.
Yeah, what is that?
So, basically, I think in 2014, the embassy staff, the U.S. embassy staff in Cuba, in Havana, had like 15 or 20 reported cases of concussion-like symptoms among the staff, and they all had a similar story that there was a loud noise, like a really loud, like cicada or cricket noise, as we both know what that sounds like. But it was like super loud, and they could hear it from one direction, and then basically they started having headaches, nausea, memory loss problems. It's all the signs of a concussion. So, of course, the U.S. government, being the government or whatever, started to first accuse Cuba of some kind of sonic death weapon that they were using and directing toward our staff or whatever. And then, long story short on that, the embassies in China also, the U.S. embassy in China reported a similar situation. And the Canadian embassy in Cuba also had a similar situation. So, fast forward up, now they're trying to figure out what it was. There is no definitive answer because, of course, everybody's in straight deny mode. But what prevalent theories that I've heard are one of two theories. One is that it was actually microwaves, a form of a microwave radiation shot in as a weapon, weaponized microwaves that would cause ultrasonic damage to the human skull. And then the other one that I just read about was the fact that it was actually faulty sonic listening devices. So everybody knows when you are in a foreign country that's somewhat, opposed to your viewpoint, they're going to bug your house. They're going to bug your car. They all know this. They accept it. They live in these houses that were provided by Cuba, and there's bugs, so they have their codes and all their different spy crap they do. But the bottom line on that, though, is that the theory is that two types of recording devices created disharmonic interference that created an ultrasonic sound that they could hear. And so it wasn't intentional, it was just bad maintenance and shitty gear. Kind of like football helmets. Yeah, so that's the latest thing. And so it's this ongoing thing that I've been hearing about, and I find it fascinating that there's using sonic weapons and this, that, and the other, and then no investigations ever come up with any kind of concrete malice toward our people. Plus, besides which, Cuba would not want to attack the Canadians because the Canadians provide the number one tourism dollars to Cuba because they never had that Bay of Pigs, yada yada. So Cuba's been Canadians have been vacationing in Cuba this whole time.
Well, see, and that's what I would think. I would never ever think that a government wouldn't weaponize something and basically attack someone else, because that's pretty much what we do. That's pretty much what governments do. But what's to gain if it was a weapon? What is really to gain with hitting the Canadians and other embassies with a special weapon? Because we can both pretty much agree that weapon exists.
Yeah.
People have it.
Yeah.
But I think something faulty makes more... It's very interesting, but something faulty makes more sense because what's to gain? Yeah. That would be the biggest thing. All you're really doing is hurting yourself at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with the Canadian dollars, if you kick out your number one source of income, then what do you really got, But yeah, so I just
when was the latest attack? Do you know?
The latest one was in the Chinese embassy in 2016.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. Now there is the I don't know, they're not conspiracy theorists quite, but the people have the theory of Iran or Russia being the one who actually was behind the attack. But
I wouldn't put it past Russia, but what would you
what's
gain?
The gain?
Yeah.
What is the gaining of the American, embassy staff feeling sick and leaving Cuba? What do you gain? We have no power there anyway.
Because we know Russia loves to fuck stuff up, but making someone sick and giving them a headache, it isn't really even a possible concussion too. It isn't really going to change the political landscape. So.
It's just one of those ongoing stories that I've been paying attention on and off throughout the years. I just got a little nudge of it in the news here yesterday.
Well, it's cool. I've never seen that before. So no, that's very interesting. I like stuff like that anyway. Well, my last news story is very much so lighthearted compared to what we've been talking about. I just couldn't fucking believe this moron. This dude stole $98,000 worth of ramen.
From where?
There was a dude with the truck driver, the victim, if you will, left keys in it. The truck was there, and this dude just jacked the truck with $98,000 of ramen noodle. They said, I think there was an estimated 300,000 packets, I want to say, and they said it's enough to feed one person for 3 years. You would die. They would definitely last that from long. Malnutrition, you would terribly. I just think you're like 98,000, even if it is just noodles. So the judge would laugh, but you'd get a heavy sentence, especially if you had a record, because it's still 98,000, and it's the truck, so it's a big felony.
So where where at? Was it?
That is a good question.
Was it America or was it Japan?
I don't know why I don't know that. I think it was America.
It sounds dumb enough for an American to try to, probably was a college kid.
Looks like it was in...
Baltimore.
Well, it occurred between July 25th and August 1st. And it was in Fayette County.
Florida?
Georgia, I think. But so I'm just thinking, I just don't understand. And the crazy thing is, this isn't the first time this kind of thing has happened. Apparently, back in 2011, when we were having like the weird temperatures and like certain things, certain fruits and other things were coming in bad. So the prices were going up. Someone stole a bunch of tomatoes, a whole truck of tomatoes. Someone just stole the truck.
I mean, I hate to get sidetracked in this, but you've heard about the avocado cartels.
Yeah, like, and that's a big thing, like, because this is actually in Florida. Someone made off with $300,000 worth of tomatoes, and that's what I thought of. Yeah. I thought of the avocado wars, quote unquote, because like you're talking about something like extremely valuable and extremely popular. Yeah. But I mean, when the temperatures and shit starts messing up, like that stuff becomes more valuable. Avocados are like gold, like so they were having to protect them. So yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. I just don't know why ramen noodles. Like, you know, I think even if you have a tendency to be a thief.
I really just think that was a straight up opportunity. I mean, like, did they catch the guy?
Yeah, they caught him.
Oh. Yeah. And how old was he?
I don't think the article told me. Okay. Speaking of which, the article will be in the show notes for anybody that wants to check it out. But
yeah, we'll put notes for the things we talked about.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't think the article mentioned the age. Huh. But
sounds like he's just a college kid, you know. It's like, holy shit, that's my whole college life right there. I can eat these forever.
Well, now I feel bad for missing this story, because at the end it's like you can click here to read about the Texas man who stole $1.2 million worth of fajitas. So that gets even more interesting. That's a lot of
like
fajitas.
A whole fajitas?
I don't know. Okay. $1.2 million. He got sentenced to 50 years in prison.
For stealing
fajitas. I don't even understand how that happens. Like, I'm trying to see if it was. Apparently, his heist began 9 years ago when a shipment of fajitas was delivered to a detention center where he worked. So, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but apparently he's just been consistently taking fajita shipments. I don't know why he thought someone wouldn't notice.
That makes more sense on both levels of like, how could you physically steal $1.2 million worth of
I don't know if you could fit $1.2 million worth of fajitas in an 18-wheeler.
I don't think you could make $1.2 million worth of fajitas fast enough so that it wouldn't go bad.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So it makes sense it was over time.
So unless it was a giant 18-wheeler transporting frozen fajitas and you just stole them at one time, that's really the only way that works.
Oh, God, and fajitas don't taste good frozen. But yeah, no, that's... And then doing it over time from a detention center. Okay, the 50-year sentence also makes sense. Because, you know, it was... Oh, I mean, it doesn't really...
Like, it makes sense.
Like, if you look at it from, like, he stole multiple times, I mean, how many counts were against him? Maybe he got a year per account, you know, and he stole 50 times.
But at the end of the day, I understand it's thievery, and I understand it's over $1 million, that's big time. But at the end of the day, it's fucking fajitas.
Yeah, but those 50 the starving prisoners, man.
That's true. I don't know, man.
No, that's taxpayer money right there.
That's true. I mean, and it's Texas. I don't think they give light sentences for anything.
No, they don't. They try not to.
So,
tries to deter the crime. Doesn't work, but, you know, what else.
But,
Noodle thief.
Yeah, it's just really bizarre. So, yeah, there's really no way to move into our main story from Noodle thief.
It's news.
Well, I guess Noodle and what we're going to talk about. But, which
That's
is
the limp of a noodle.
Interesting, yeah. But, we wanted to talk about the Louis C.K. performance. And
we don't mean the individual performances he gave to several women.
Yeah, no, we don't mean that. We don't want to talk about that performance or those performances.
We'll reference them, but yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, so basically, I think like a week ago, somebody was performing and a club owner let Louis C.K. come out and do a set. I think it was only like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was probably pretty funny. I think he talked about like racism and some other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, he really just like, he really was trying to win the public back with his topics.
Yeah, at least he didn't come out and just start talking about the Me Too movement and like sexual misconduct.
Like to really straight up racism and, you know, some lighter topics.
But apparently he got a standing ovation when he came out. People clapping. Like, so I think a lot of people were pleasantly surprised. And obviously...
You mean that he was still funny after being, you know...
Yes.
Yeah.
So the news story, as we can all guess, over the next few days was it too soon? Should the club owner have let him do it? You know, we're all pretty familiar with the story of what happened. So, I don't know. What do you think?
I think that it is... He was never convicted of a crime. So, therefore, he cannot be held legally against doing work that earns him money, no matter what that is. You could hang him out in a moral court if you want. I don't agree with that because people complained about what he did. What he did was wrong. Wrong from a perspective of forcing people that were in his, from a job place standpoint, people that he employed, that he, made them watch him masturbate or whatever he was doing. But most of the stories that you would hear about would be that it was not exactly consensual, but comedic, and they didn't know if he was doing a bit or what was going on, he just, like, hey guys, look at me, whack, 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 you're like, that's weird, I'm leaving now. And there were some stories that he blocked some people in, I guess. I don't know.
Allegedly, he blocked doorways, and kept someone from leaving, but I don't even know, none of us know the facts. None of us know any of the real thing.
You don't know the facts. It's all hearsay. And honestly, he came out and admitted it. But like I was saying, when we talked about it before, was the fact that it could also be a lie. There was no investigation. There was no fact-finding. There was just, they said he did it. He said I did it. Therefore, we all agreed. They could have been lying. He could have been lying for publicity. You never know because there was no investigation. Ergo, was there really a crime? And honestly, there wasn't a crime because there was no criminal charges filed.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we can't say he committed a crime because he's not, on paper, he has no felony. There was nothing against his name because nothing was ever brought up in court. We can all agree it's fucked up.
Yeah.
We can all agree it's a weird compulsion. Yeah. I don't even know why. That's just a really bizarre thing. But at the end of the day, it is court of public opinion. There's been rumors swirling about him since the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, in light of the Me Too movement, things started coming up. And these female comedians and other people started accusing him of things. So, once again, like you said, my question would be, why did you pursue some sort of legal ramification to him? Because if I was wronged like that, that's a fucked up thing. If I was wrong like that, I would want to pursue it. And when
I felt sexually wronged in some way, there's a pursuant. I would want the cops involved. I would want proof. I would want an apology. I would want, financial compensation. I would want something. But as far as I know, nobody's filed lawsuits. Nobody's filed charges. Nobody's done anything.
Yeah, and at the end, and obviously we're not gonna take away or demean the stories where it's I was afraid, I didn't want to say anything. That's fine, but people said stuff. So it's not a matter of I was too afraid to say something. Yeah. I did say something, but why didn't I go to the police? But that's here nor there. At the end of the day, like you said, and it's very similar what you said about him making a living doing anything. Very similar to what I forgot what comedian was on Joe Rogan's podcast talking about this the other day, but he said. At the end of the day, you can't stop him from earning a living. You can't. That club owner signed off on him, and he's taking some shit for it.
Yeah.
That club owner signed off on him doing a quick set. He was probably running some new material. We know how stand-up works. So he was out there running some new material, and he just wanted to see how it would go, and he eased into it. No headliners, no nothing. It was just a short, quick set. So at the end of the day, you can't stop him from performing. And that's essentially where we fall on it. If there was nothing that happened, I understand it was a very heated topic given the Me Too movement. But this whole trial by Twitter and all these people telling other people how they need to feel and what their ethical scale should be. That one woman we read about that tweeted, it was your ethical duty to walk out. You can't tell me what my ethics are. You can't tell anybody.
Part of that, you already paid for it. But anyway.
Oh, yeah.
He's getting paid no matter what. So walking out would do nothing.
But here's the question I have for you. See what your thoughts are. Should the club owner have let people know at the beginning of the show Louis C.K. was going to do a set so they would not be blindsided?
No.
Because what if, like Cosby, in between courts, did a set. Just a small group.
Yeah.
But the point is...
Also standing ovation, by the way.
It was? I didn't know that. Yeah. So that's fucking weird.
Every one of them loved him.
So it's like, so you don't think it was unfair that he didn't tell people?
No, it's not. Because it's not... Again, that's like, her whole point of, it's your moral, or ethical duty. Everybody's morals and ethics are slightly different. I mean, it's all perception. And, what I find what he did morally issuey, but it doesn't rate on the same scale as, a murderer or something of that nature. Just that's just my personal
it doesn't
thing.
Even rate on the same scale as your Weinsteins or your Cosby's simply because rates. You're in a different arena.
Yeah. So I don't really think that, not that you can judge on scale or whatnot, but again, there was no legal ramification. There was no legal follow-up, so he has done nothing wrong. So therefore, no, I don't think the club owner, has any obligation to say what's going on either. You know, I mean, Louis C.K. He could have come up there in like a mask and no one who knew who he was with a voice transformer and did a routine, then walked off. No one would be the wiser. You know, and I don't feel that's any more of a problem either, because we do not legally or morally or ethically, unless we have an issue with issue with what that person did. I mean, again, it's all personal perspective. The club owner did not have to do anything that he didn't feel was morally okay. In other words, like, he didn't have a moral obligation to notify people out there, because, again, no legal ramification. You know, how long do we, you know, it also goes in that whole thing, how long do we hold someone accountable? That's another part we'll probably touch on. But yeah, no, I don't think that the club owner had any duty to inform, because, again, there's no legal there.
Well, I feel like it's a two-way street, because there was no legal pursuit of people he had wronged. And by the way, while we're on that, I will say, I don't know if everybody's familiar with it, but we pretty much said everything. Louis C.K. was accused by several people of basically masturbating in front of them. Mm-hmm. He would ask, he did say several occasions, he would ask if they would like to see his penis, and then he would masturbate in front of them. And obviously a lot of people were uncomfortable, and they would talk about, like, you know, sometimes he would block the door, allegedly. Sometimes it was his subordinates, which is a whole different set of ethics if you want to get into it. Yeah. Either way, that's what he did.
That's a work-based violation.
Yeah,
like that's through with that.
Yeah, so no, that's a huge problem as well. But like I said, it's a two-way street with what he did, because since no one, he said this, the statement was, "This is true." Like, that was his statement. Like, it's true, I did it. But how do we know, since it's happened, if he hasn't been pursuing psychological counseling, if he's been trying to rehabilitate? So, like, it goes back to what you said, which is, how long do you hold someone out like that? Like, for a guy like Louis C.K., where no charges were filed, he admitted it was wrong, and if it's all true, like, this is pretty much what we have. We have a bunch of tweets of people talking shit about him and saying he's a fucking filthy dude, and that's so fucked up and all that. But I mean, he's been very private with how he's dealt with it. So I'm playing devil's advocate. If he's been going to counseling and trying to better himself, like, yeah, I think this was the perfect way to come back, if I'm being honest. And I'm a Louis C.K. fan. I'm not going to pay for a ticket, but I watch his specials on Netflix and stuff. Yeah. So I think this was the best way to come back. He's feeling the water, seeing how everybody was gonna react to him, and he did a quick 15-minute set, and he was done. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I said, it's not like he's trying to headline an HBO show.
Yeah, which he will soon.
Probably
on Netflix.
So I mean, because really, at the end of the day, he lost everything. I mean, this news broke hours before they were about to start the tour for his movie, which most people said was garbage. Like, most of your early reviews, they said it was garbage. Yeah. And the weird thing is, like, the subject matter, it was about an older dude pursuing a much younger female. The production wasn't shy about taking shots at Woody Allen in a very weird way, because it was a Woody Allen style movie while taking a shot at Woody Allen. So that was very interesting. But the news broke hours before that, so they pulled the movie. Like, nobody's distributed it yet. He lost his TV show. He got replaced in the movie Secret Life of Pets. He was doing a voice. So pretty much everything crumbled. So that was really his only punishment. Like, his punishment was being shunned for X amount of time. And now, and if you want to consider that a punishment, I view it as a bunch of companies exercising their rights to not have you be a part of what they're doing. And at the end of the day, he's a stand-up comedian. So, like, he just goes back to what he's doing. I think it would have been weird if he would have came back like a month after. But even then, we'd be having the same conversation. Yeah. No charges were filed. None of that happened. Yeah. Like, is this okay?
Yeah. No, and I think it is. My gut reaction and my thought about a reaction are basically the same. That I think it's okay, because as much as I don't like to be a legalist, they're literally the problem is we can't keep crucifying people on public opinion without charges. I've never been a fan of that. Never. None of the SJWs. None of that. I don't like. If they are proven in court to have done something wrong, preponderance of evidence, et cetera, et cetera, that's one thing. But I just don't think. I mean, we are so reactive these days because everything's so accessible. You can have a gut reaction. You could tweet it out, and there you go. That gets you in trouble on both sides of that equation, though. But I think that we are just too hair trigger.
Oh, I agree, 100%.
I don't think that I don't think there was anything wrong because nothing was proven legally. And that's it. Whether you don't like it, whether you don't care, the end of the day is he did not do anything legally wrong. Therefore, he cannot be kept from earning a living unless people who could put him on stage, put him into movies, deny him the access.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's like any club owner's call.
Yeah.
Like if a club owner lets him headline a show next week, if the people speak and no one shows up, it's like, oh fuck, I don't know what to do now.
Yeah.
But I can almost guarantee you he will fill the house because the club owner is making a business decision, not based on your feelings.
Yeah.
Because going back to what you said, we live in an era right now, we're experiencing it, where it's a bunch of keyboard warriors. And everyone is so knee-jerk. And you could see one snippet. You don't check to see if it's fake. You don't check to see if it's true. You could ruin someone's entire reputation with one sentence, with one mention of any of the words that we consider super, like, you can never, like, unattach yourself from, like rape or pedophilia or any of that. So we have all these people on Twitter and Facebook being the worst when it comes to quote-unquote fake news. Not to, and I mean real fake news, not factual fake news.
Yeah, no, it's like aliens are coming down, or my dog has 14 legs. So
I mean, and that's where we fall. Like, I guess if I'm going to use a very simplistic word to describe the situation, I would say it's gross. Like, it's just a really gross, fucking weird compulsion, and everything about it is weird. But
and that leads into that a whole other topic that we may touch at some future date about the Hollywoodization of people, like that separation from reality, that as you become famous and rich and put up on a pedestal, that you start to think, well, maybe it's okay for me to masturbate in front of my secretary. Maybe it's just okay because everybody loves what I do. Hey, look at me, I'm famous and rich. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, she had a problem with that. Ooh, my bad. And that's part of it. It's like I think that's a big part of it as well. Is like all the other crack ups you get in Hollywood. I mean, I think a lot of that. You can blame drugs and this, that, and the other, but I think a lot of it is just it's just the power and the drug that is fame and money. And
well, I mean, it's the age-old saying.
You start getting detached.
It's the age-old saying of absolute power corrupts absolutely. So you look at a guy like Weinstein. Like, I think he's always been a piece of shit, if I had to make a guess. But that power and that money gave him the ability to exercise those feelings. Gave him the ability to basically just go do what he was thinking. So, I mean, it is that power. And it's almost like they get so rich and so powerful that they lose reality. And they do this weird fucked up stuff, and it's like, oh no, this is fine because I'm above you. And I think that's the problem, which that is a problem in this country with how we view celebrities in general. They do get put up on a pedestal. They do get placed, and at the end of the day, we're all human. Some of us may have more money or more fame, but we're all human. So when you look at a guy like Louis C.K., has he always had that compulsion? Probably.
Yeah.
Would he have done it to people if he wasn't famous? Probably, but we don't know. Being famous and having that type of spotlight probably made it harder for him to control himself, if I had to make a guess. Yeah.
Well, beyond that, I think that I go the other way. I don't think that he would be as inclined to do that to general people if he wasn't desensitized to or if his fame wasn't allowing him access to these things. Like, I think that maybe he, had went through a chain of girlfriends or whatever where they're like, he was weird, just like to whip it out and jerk off in public in front of me and stuff like that. But I think it might have been more maintained. But when you get that ability, that fame, that, like, well, I can do whatever I want because I have money, or, these guys just laugh at everything I do, So I think that probably made him more, incentivized him more to just whatever, it doesn't matter anymore. I can just do whatever.
And that's a good point, because when you look at comedians in general, like, we've always had the thought process, like real comedians and people that want, like, either it's all funny or none of it's funny kind of thing, which is where I fall. When you're dealing with those comedians, they probably do become desensitized to certain things. So as he got more famous and his jokes, he's always been kind of edgy. He talked about interesting topics that were sometimes taboo and stuff like that. So, I mean, at some point, it probably did get to where he was starting to to do it because of that, because he was getting more untouched from reality. Yeah. If that makes sense. But no, that's a good point. I mean, I don't know. It's fucked up and it's weird, but at the end of the day, they can't stop him from performing. If you want to walk out, walk out. If you want to get pissed, get pissed. But fuck it, man.
Yeah,
like,
don't presume that to think that what you have to say is more important than what other people are feeling, or that you have the zeitgeist or the pulse of the nation or whatever, just because you read some Twitter.
Like, yeah, like you have these idiots that'll have like, oh, I've got 1 million followers on Twitter, or I've got 500,000 followers on Twitter, so my voice counts. Yeah. So I'm going to say, fuck you. If the guy like that walks up on stage, you need to walk out of the building. It is your ethical duty to do that. Otherwise, you're just as shitty. That's preposterous. Yeah. It's absurd. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's weird, but yeah, no, that's pretty much. I mean, that was the story. I mean, essentially, like so. If anybody has any thoughts or feelings on the subject, obviously leave them in the comments. Like to hear what you guys think. It's always very interesting to hear what, non-Twitter warriors think, like the actual like real people in society, and not people that are just
hopefully
trying
that's who we're reaching.
Yes. But yeah, basically we're gonna move out of that story and let's talk about a little bit about what we're doing right now. Steven, what are you reading anything or playing anything cool? Video games, any of that?
Honestly, my current obsession is, as you know, is the Division.
That is your current obsession.
Yes.
You do love that.
Yes.
When did that game come out?
I honestly don't. I think it's 2 years ago.
Isn't there Division 2's coming out in a couple of...
Yeah, in March.
Okay.
Division 2 comes out in March. But yeah, it's one of those games where, they released it and people were like, oh, it's going to be so awesome. And they released it like, this game sucks. It's buggy and you can't win and this, that, and the other. And the story's terrible. And so like it was released to great fanfare, went to nothing. And then they started releasing patches for it. And when they released patch 1.7 or 1.8 or whatever, all of a sudden it was an amazing game. I luckily bypassed all of that and just started playing at patch 1.8. And so I came into a game that was fully realized and amazing, and I enjoy playing it because it reminds me of like I'm running around in a post-apocalyptic New York, like I'm freaking Snake Plissken from Escape from New York or whatever, just rolling through and killing different gang members and this, that, and the other. And it's a first-person shooter, and I enjoy that kind of stuff. But overall, it's just got a really good story, and I like it's like set in the winter, and so it snows and you're out there running around in the dark and the cold, and it just feels really good, and the Division 2 is going to be interesting because it's in DC on a 1-to-1 scale of a section of DC, and it's going to take place in the summer, so I'm hoping my character can have shorts, because you guys don't know this out there probably, but I prefer wearing shorts as my
all the time. Doesn't matter what the temperature is.
So it's like, so if I can start putting on shorts, and run around there with a...
Well, I feel like I don't know much about the Division because I don't play it, but I feel like they're if they don't play that right, they're losing like another layer to the game, because placing it in winter, in my opinion, because I'm a big movie fan, so when you look at movies and video games, that adds a layer of desperation.
It does.
Like you're cold and you just like your character's cold and you see all these homeless people and it's just fucked up. Like, so I think putting it in summer, it's going to be interesting. Like I'm curious to see what it looks like.
I hadn't thought about that, but I hadn't thought about that in those terms, but I did actually have the initial reaction of, yes, I'm losing one of my favorite aspects of the game, is I like the dark and the cold, and all of a sudden it's going to be sunny in summertime in Virginia, or no, Maryland, sorry, my bad. I do know where things are at, but yeah.
Well, there's really no way to show us from a visual standpoint the desperation of summer unless like you zoom in and show them sweating and shit.
Honestly, in that vein, like if you want to talk about that, it could be set in Vegas or someplace that actually has sand, like or Phoenix, someplace that actually has some heat, and after a while, you're gonna get sand blown in there, this, that, and the other. But I don't know. I think DC was their natural setting just because that's the capital, and part of what the Division is you're a sleeper organization of the government that's activated during times of when the government starts to falter and fail, and you're like kind of this sleeper agent goes in and helps everybody out. And I don't want to ruin the game for anybody, but I think that actually is interesting, because as you play through the game, you determine that it's not an isolated event in New York; it's happening throughout the world. So it makes sense that your next step would be what happened to the U.S. government. If you were a U.S. government agent that was sent in to help with this disaster relief, if you will. What happens when your supplies stop? What happens when all of a sudden, no, there's no more service coming from the top because the top's infected and gone. So that's where I think that it will advance the story a lot. But you're right; they're going to have to work at it a little bit to add that kind of a fearful element back into it. Because I mean, one of the DLCs, there were 3 DLCs released. One was Underground, which is kind of a dungeon crawler. It generates a different dungeon every time you go down there with similar missions but different area. And so now you're dark underground, and there's like weird bangy clanging noises, and that's my favorite DLC because it's pretty spooky. But the next one was called Survival, which basically you were on a helicopter trying to leave the island, and you get shot down, and you land with nothing but normal clothes and a pistol, and you're in a blizzard, and you have to run around and stay warm. You have to collect gear, you have to collect guns, and then you have to start, fighting other rogue agents. So basically that whole point of winter became the story in the DLC too, because now you're fighting the cold to stay alive. So then the third DLC was stupid, PvP. I hate PvP. But anyway, it was like instead of it was 8-on-8 group PvP called Last Stand. But anyway, so that is a huge thing that they're going to have to deal with,
So the game's been out 2 years.
Yes.
You've been playing it for a few months now?
Probably about... Well, I started in November, but we didn't play very often.
Okay.
But throughout the summer. But yeah, over the last, I'd say probably 5 months, I've become addicted to it.
So you would strongly encourage anyone who is currently not playing that likes shooters and video games to play that game?
I would. Don't clog my servers.
Yeah.
So no, I would encourage you not to play it.
No, I want the masses to play this game. I want to see what happens when Steven can't play the Division because the servers are down.
Oh god, that's going to be terrible.
Well, I am playing a game. It's a little different.
Yes.
It's also a lot older. Came out, I think, in 2000, possibly 99. I could be wrong. Actually, I'm going to look that up real quick. But the game is Diablo 2. For anybody that's wondering, that is a PC-based RPG,
it's an RPG,
essentially. And I don't want to
overhype
it, but it's the greatest game ever made.
That's okay. It's fun, but it's what World of Warcraft was before World of Warcraft was World of Warcraft.
Yeah, well,
it's a top-down scroller kind of game where
Just for anybody who was wondering, it came out June 29th, 2000. Was the day the greatest game ever created, next to maybe Mario Brothers 3, came out. When it comes, that's my opinion.
I'm surprised not dropping Gears of War in there.
Well, I can't drop that on the greatest games. But I'm not a gamer by any means. I just have a few I like. But Diablo 2 is just an old school RPG. That's what I just got back into. I used to play it when I was a kid, but it's a lot of fun. I really like it. It's just a good.
That was one of the original LAN party games where you would take your computer over to what they call a dorm room game, where you'd all come down and connect your computer to computer to computer with like a single twisted pair of cables, so you could get inverted networking communication or whatnot.
Also, there's very few RPG games that have not been influenced by that. It was a huge when it came out, the cinematics in it and the story and the scope and the world. Basically, it was.
I would say Legend of Zelda, especially. I was watching some Breath of the Wild or whatever my friend was playing it, but. I was like, it was Diablo. I mean, because you have sections that you sections of things you have to conquer through to level up to go to the next one. And I think all those procedural RPGs were actually based upon Diablo 2.
Yeah, no, it's cool, man. It's a good game, and for anybody that's interested in playing a 20-year-old game, that's a lot of fun, and you can play it pretty much on any computer right now. You no longer have to worry about.
Again, I was telling you, it's I don't even want to put it on my computer. Can I just put it on my tablet or my phone? I think just dragging my finger around would be better than clicking the mouse 8 million freaking times.
Things have changed because I remember in 2002, my computer could barely run it, and it was slow and laggy. So we've came a long way. But I'll also want to say what I'm currently reading, because I do read a lot, so I will probably talk about the books I read if they're interesting. The Black Klansman. For anybody that has not seen that movie, I strongly encourage you to go see it. It's a Spike Lee joint. It's probably the least Spike Lee movie Spike Lee's ever made, which is interesting. But it was a really cool story. It was bone-chilling sometimes and amusing other times, and Denzel Washington's son did a good job.
What's his name?
I cannot remember his name.
That's the reason I asked. It's Denzel Washington's kid. I don't know what he doesn't have his own name.
Well, no, I'm going to look his name up because it needs to be...
He's just Junior.
It needs to be looked up, but he did a great job. I know he has a big shadow that he has to climb out of.
Well, he doesn't, because I'm pretty sure you're the only person who knows it's Denzel's son, because I had no idea.
A lot of people know. It's John David Washington. All I know is Denzel was getting interviewed, and he said he's glad his son doesn't play football anymore because he was he played in college, and he got tired of concussions. And you see all the havoc being wreaked by concussions right now. So
we'll touch on that more. I mean, I made a joke about the helmets earlier, so that is something.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that, especially with football season coming up. But yeah, well, BlacKkKlansman, it's a great movie, but I'm currently about an hour into the book, and it's really good.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but that reminds me of the fact that a friend of mine told me this, and it's so true. I don't remember if it was you or somebody else, but like, if there's ever a book and a movie, always watch the movie and then read the book. Because you read the book and then watch the movie, you're going to be disappointed about what they left out. But if you watch the movie then read the book, you will be excited about getting more of the story that you enjoyed.
That's true, and also in my opinion, not every movie that's adapted, not every book that's adapted should be read. I think sometimes it's only good in the media platform. They fucked up.
Oh yeah, no. Again, that's like the thing is like that. That's literally a book to a movie situation. But yeah, if you're talking a movie that was written into a book, no, those are usually terrible.
No, I'm just talking about some books don't need to be read. Like one of the greatest movies ever made, in my opinion, easily in the top 3 greatest movies to come out in the last 20 years is No Country for Old Men. Cormac McCarthy wrote that book to become a movie because the book's terrible. It is an awful book. If somebody likes it, I'm sorry, but it's a terrible book. But the movie and what the Coen brothers did was phenomenal. So that's one of those cases where it's like you have if you're trying to get somebody's attention and screenplays aren't working, you write a book and you get it adapted. Yeah. But no, I agree with that 100%. That way you're not disappointed. Yeah. You watch the movie, like in my case, BlacKkKlansman piqued my interest enough to learn more about Ron Stallworth, who is the lead character. I want to know what's true, what Spike Lee put in for entertainment purposes. Yeah. So no, it's really good. I strongly encourage anybody, check out the movie, check out the book. It's a lot of fun.
Rolling back around to it, Ready Player One. That was a very disappointing movie to me.
It was, I agree.
And the book was absolutely amazing. It was straight up, so run it back from the beginning
to
the end.
For anybody that's watched that, I will say 10 minutes into it, if you've read the book, you knew to disconnect, because if you didn't, the movie was going to be ruined. I disconnected 10 or 15 minutes into it, not to get into spoilers, but even the first quest was very different. Yeah. None of the characters have the same arc. So about 15 minutes into it, I was like, I'm going to enjoy this visual spectacle, but this is not the fucking book.
So basically, again, we have a director, even a well-known one, is Greatest Spielberg, just basically like, I really like that title and that concept. Go fuck yourself on what the story's about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I know a lot of people hated the book. I will say
the book.
The dude, he has a lot of haters because a lot of people felt the pop culture references were too in your face. And don't get me wrong, it's a big hit. But I'm just saying, like, a lot of people didn't think he was that great of a writer. Yeah. But it doesn't matter. Right. Well, it doesn't. Yeah, that's true. But it doesn't matter who your writer is when you're talking about that material. Yeah. Because if you're a nerd or a geek from that loves pop culture and shit, you're gonna love the book. There's no way you're not. It's just it's a great adventure pop culture book. But anyway, we're getting ready to wrap it up. Did you have a fun fact this week?
Oh, yeah, fun fact. I actually didn't come up with it, did I? I have no fun facts.
Well, I have a fun fact that is cool enough to carry both of us. And for anyone who wants to do more research, I encourage it because it's so fucking cool. But I found this out last week. A bloodhound is the only animal whose evidence is admissible in court. I don't have any exact trials that were decided by it, but I did read, because this is in Guinness World Book of Records, because this is a current thing. I think they just did it 2 years ago or a year ago. This will be in the show notes, so anybody that's interested can check it out. But yeah, so there's been courts where a bloodhound's evidence decided the guilt verdict.
Man,
because
let's see what the cases were, because that's so bizarre.
Like, I guess because they are so, because I think I read about a story back in the early 1900s, I believe, or late 1800s in England. Bloodhounds tracked a carriage thief 135 miles and they caught him. Because their noses are, I'm not going to go into detail. Anybody that wants to look it up, look it up. But they're insane. What they can smell and what they can do. So no, that's a very weird fact, but that's kind of what we're going to do. We just want to bring something that's a little fun and did you know-ish to the table. So, yeah, for anybody that's curious about it, I'd check it out. But it's just really cool. I didn't think that they would do that.
No, that makes it's like lie detectors aren't, but damn bloodhounds.
Yeah, like Yeah, that's just really weird.
Yeah.
But no, guys, I think that'll do it for this week. Unless you have anything to add, Steven.
No, I think that's we covered some pretty good subjects for the first time around.
Yeah, perfect. Well, guys, thanks for listening. This has been the Discord Accords with Jonathan and Steven, and thank you very much for listening. We'll have more great content for you coming soon.
Yep, take care out there.